Hello, everybody. This is Chevy Jenkins. This is going to be the first in a series of analytical lectures or presentations that I'm going to give in place on this YouTube channel. They're designed for my course at City College, uh, which is the history of popular music, the second semester of that. But they should be accessible to anyone with some background in music and music theory. I'm going to keep this one short in part because it's the first one and I'm still trying to figure out how this all will work. This one will concern Living for the City, which is a song by Stevie Wonder. It was a #1 hit in 1973, won the Grammy in 1974. The album from which it comes, Intervisions, also won the Grammy in 1974. So this is a great period for Stevie Wonder. It's a period where he has just a string of amazing albums, in part because when he turned 21, he renegotiated his contract with Motown, and he was granted pretty much unlimited creative control. And one of the things that he does with that creative control is he creates these albums, really album as art here. They're not concept albums exactly, but they're really meant to have an overarching sound and to just have a different sort of level of achievement than just a collection of, say, singles or something. This particular song is the lyrics concern a young man who's born in the South. And I want you to listen, obviously, to the full song. The link will be down below. But the lyrics here are about a young man who was born in the South, raised in poverty, a boy born in Hard Time, Mississippi, surrounded by four walls that ain't so pretty. But his parents give him a lot of love and affection, as Stevie puts it. They work hard. His mother scrubs floors. His father works 14 hours a day. His sister's pretty, but she wears these old clothes that are in disrepair, and yet she keeps them clean. So there's this sense in which the family is very upstanding. They're trying hard. They're just in a very unfortunate situation, being in the South, where there's discrimination. The young man can't find a job because, as Stevie Wonder puts it, they don't hire colored people where he is, and so the young man moves to the north. Then there's a skit in the middle of the song, in the latter half of the song, where we hear him arrive by bus in the city. A guy comes up to him, a stranger comes up to him, says, "Can you hold this for me?" Turns out it's drugs. He gets arrested. We hear him in court. He gets sentenced to 10 years. Then the last part of the song, Stevie Wonder is singing about how he's got long hair and his feet are dirty, and he tried to vote, but there's no solution to the problems that he's in. And the song ends with a kind of moral, which is if we don't change things, if we don't fix these inequities, then the whole world is going to go down the tubes. So it's kind of a message song in that way. Now the song itself, in one sense, is very simple, and in another sense is fairly complex. The simple part is that it's an adaptation of blues harmony. It's in G flat, but the main chord here is not G flat major, but rather G flat 7, dominant 7. I thought I had. There we go. We'll use this sound just to get a little closer to what the sound is on the recording. Like I said, so we're here in G flat 7, so a blues harmony. Now it doesn't follow the cycle here of the verse into the refrain is a 12-bar cycle. So again, another similarity to the blues. But unlike the normal blues, it doesn't have quite the same progression as the typical 12-bar blues. Rather, it's a pedal on G flat. But the way that it works is basically this upper voice right? Now that's not that surprising if you think about, let's say, a G flat blues. It's very typical to have something like, right? That kind of note pattern, just like this one. The difference is that it's not occurring where we usually expect it to occur in a blues vamp like that. What we usually expect is that you have the fifth as the upper voice going to a sixth, then to the seventh, and then back. Right? Very typical boogie woogie type pattern. What Stevie Wonder does with it, though, is he creates this sort of pattern where the high note at first is the tonic, and then he has a 4/6 chord, so a C flat 6 chord, so the A flat up above, and then to basically a G flat minor. So now the B double flat or the A here. So this, and we get this pattern. Notice the syncopation. Right, so this pattern over the G. When he's singing, notice the pitch for his voice stays mostly around the G flat. So we have this a boy's born, hard time Mississippi. So what is that? That's just the seventh coming up to the tonic, and then the second to the tonic. Right? And then the next line is, so we come down to the E flat to the sixth degree, but then again back up to that tonic, and then you get this nice bit of arpeggio of the chord. But notice what happens there. We get this arpeggio. That's just an arpeggio with a passing tone, right? But then he ends on that passing, what happened, the passing tone. He ends on the A flat, and that gives it this little bit of a sense that it needs to resolve, that it's not done, right? And then it starts again with the, but then with the next bit is, and then, right? So in a new direction, and then we get the contrasting part. So all that was just over the vamp on the G flat, but now we get an actual move, a bona fide move, so to speak, to the C flat, the 4 chord, and we get this living just enough, and then up to the D flat, just enough for the city. Now notice that. If you go back and listen to the very opening of the tune, you'll hear that it starts with, right? So that 5, 6, 1, and here at the cadence, he's giving us that again, right? Now that's most of the song. Most of the song is just that progression over and over again, aside from the skit. Now the other exception to that is the little interlude that comes back over and over again. The interlude's very interesting. He sings just nonsense syllables over it, da da da, and then at the end of the song, no no no. But the chord progression itself is what's interesting here. We'll just look at it very briefly. But we switch to 3 instead of the rest of the song was in 4. We're switching to 3, and it starts off in a way that might not seem at all surprising, where we have this. Right, we'll come back to that second part, but the very first part is just the G flat chord again, the same one that we've had the whole time, a G flat 7. The difference now is that the 7th, the F flat, is in the bass, and so now it has more of a sense that it has to resolve, that it indeed has to resolve down, like, right? So we're hearing this. It's what we're expecting and what we get. But what happens above is that becomes a C flat 7 chord, C flat 9 really, but with the 7th up top. So what we have here is this, right? Sorry, that. So if you just take the bass and the upper voice, we have a tritone between the F flat, which is the same as E natural, and the B flat. And then that comes down to a tritone between an E flat and an A, right? So we have, and then the bass continues to come down to a D, and then to a C, and then to a B flat, and then to an A, then to a G, to a G flat. So notice what's happened is the whole song is really a vamp on G flat. And then when we get to this little interlude in 3/4, we come down to an F flat, to an E flat like we might expect it to do. But then that continues chromatically at first to a D, and then C, B flat, A, G to G flat. And that G, of course, for those of you who are into jazz, that G can be thought of as a kind of tritone substitution for the more expected D flat that would get us to the G flat. But what that creates is this very interesting, like I said, interlude within the piece. So I'm going to do this in a somewhat boring way by playing, to give us a sense of the time, the 3/4. I'm just going to play the bass and then the melody above. But notice this descent here. Right? So this very interesting interlude. And then you'll notice if you go to the end of the song, and it's a long song, but you got to get all the way through it, try to listen to the whole thing. When you get to the end, you'll see that he expands that that interlude to create this coda at the end that, you know, perhaps surprisingly winds up ending not in G flat, even though the whole song's been in G flat, but in G. And he does that just by staying on that G chord and not resolving it. Now, there are various ways in which you might hear that, and you should listen to it a few times and see what you think. You might hear it as it kind of suspending, and that the whole thing never ends, and just like the saga of poverty and attempts to get out of poverty and not being able to fully, that doesn't end either. It might be that he digs into the G so long that you hear it as a substitute tonic. That's something for you to think about. So that's our analysis for this song. Tune in soon for the next analysis. Thanks.